What a thrill and honor to have Declan here, you guys. You've got in front of you some of the best managers of dental offices in the world. Justin, God bless you, Justin. We've got Declan. Declan, yeah, that's you, man. It's you. You. It does an astonishing job. All right, I'll tell you kind of a general story. When I first met him, he was not doing so good. He had, it's $25,000 a month rent. $22,000 a month rent. He was in a bankrupt Right Smile place. Those guys went bankrupt. You know they never made any money, right? Anyway, he took over one of their offices downtown Honolulu. But he's sitting there doing 90,000 some odd bucks. He's got he's got a partner, he's got a couple of hygienists, and he's got $22,000 a month rent. It's horrible. And it's a bloodbath. And thank God he knew Sed, and knew Sed was doing kind of good, and so he kind of listened to what we were telling him. Sed's over there. The master said. So at this point now, he's running at about $1.1 million per chair per year. This is great management. So this is great management. Unfortunately, he can't grow anymore because he just added a couple of chairs, and he just pretty much maxed out at about 110 hours a week. But it's such a blessing to have this guy up here. Please give him a round of applause, Declan Devereux.
This is always frightening when I get up because I don't know what I'm going to say. I usually grab the book that you guys have, because I did put the slides together with my sister. So I had an idea, okay, I want to talk about this topic, and we'll put this slide and this slide, but exactly what I'm going to say, I don't know. So it's kind of scary. And then I always know I don't want to take up too much time. I know that. So I'll try to keep this less than 60 minutes. And then I was thinking, raise your hands if you think it's a good idea to end a little early and then do like a Q&A for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. It seemed like yesterday after Justin's talk, which was fantastic, by the way, the questions were really valuable in the feedback. So does that sound good? Show of hands? Thumbs up? Okay. Well, that's it. We're ready then. Get ready. Put your seatbelts on. So here's the first thing is, yesterday I was walking around in shorts and a t-shirt, because that's where we're from, Hawaii. That's how we usually dress. But I'm not in a short and t-shirt today. If you can see these shoes from the back, this is the opposite. So, but there's a reason I'm this dressed up, though. So, and it's a little personal, but I'll share it. My wife and I, who's over there somewhere, she's low-key. She does not want to be identified. But there's a laser pointer. There she is. Okay. She didn't count on the laser pointer. Yeah, so we've been trying to have another baby, but we haven't been successful. And, without getting too personal, she got checked out, and it's all good. And then I wanted to go to a specialist because the first guy was like, couldn't get an appointment. Got an appointment yesterday in Vegas. And so the good news is, he said, everything's fine. You're impotent. And I'm like, well, if I'm impotent, I got to dress impotent. Okay, that's all you like. That's a joke. Do you get it? Walk it through. Okay, one more joke, and then I'll actually give a presentation. Ready? Okay, what is orange and sounds like a parrot? That was close. It's a carrot. It takes a while. It sinks in. It's one of those ones that creeps up on you. Just think about it for a while, right? Parrot and carrot. Okay, what's the difference between a well-told joke and a bad joke? The timing. Okay, here we go. Get ready. That's enough of that. That's enough of that silly stuff. I want to recommend 3 companies for you guys. One is Treatment 24/7, which we've been using for quite a while now, and it's gotten even better. It integrates in with the Dentrix. So what it does, basically, is help you keep track of how the doctors are doing, the treatment plans, what to follow up. It makes it so much nicer when you present the treatment. We used to use Dentrix, and then we had something before that, and it itemized the whole thing into words that nobody understood. And the problem is, when it's so detailed like that, the patients can't help but get drawn into all those details, and they start going, well, what does that mean, and what does that mean? And before you know it, you're trying to explain this really complicated thing, and they lose track of, should I even do this? I need more time to think about it. So it makes it really simple. Like it'd be fillings, it'll say, and whatever that costs, or bridge and filling. So it's really, really good, and it has a lot more features, so go check that out. Unified Smiles, I think they've saved us in just a year like 24,000, something ridiculous. Is Walt here? He's probably not up this early. But anyway, that's his company, and we've been using them for, I don't know now, like 3 or 4 years. They're fantastic. The other one, and I'm always hesitant to recommend a dental lab because most dentists get really tied in and like their lab. And I was like that. I have a lab in Hawaii that I used for years, and I really liked him. He was good. But we don't get paid more and more each year from the insurance companies. They actually tighten it up. It's like, you know, it's going to be a little less than it was the year before. So their price, if you have a scanner, is $49 for solid monolithic, and I think it's like $8 more if you want it layered. And they get them back in 8 days. So the turnaround is great. Plus, they have a special. When your lab bill gets up to $5,000 in 6 months, which is nothing crazy, they fly you to Las Vegas, round trip, and they give you $2,000 of gift certificates. It's amazing. So talk to the guy. His name's Scott. And so that's it for my plugs. I think all of those are really good companies. This is just a really cool slide, I think, rethinking scheduling, because that's really the main topic, which, of course, when I talk, there ends up being 20 topics. One of my good friends went out to breakfast with me a few weeks ago, and he said, Declan, you know, having breakfast with you is like really draining. There's this topic and that topic. There are all these different topics, and they all sort of connect. He goes, but it's really exhausting. So probably this lecture will be a little bit like that. That's why I keep it shorter, because there'll be a lot of topics. But the main one is scheduling. Where are my guys I met yesterday? Jim, is he here? I don't see him. But it's a little bit real counterintuitive of what people think. So people I've found are very open-minded about new things as long as they're exactly like the old. Which we find that to be true. Isn't it true when you go back to your office? And that was such a common question yesterday was, how do we get so-and-so, whoever it is, to change? And often sadly, it sounded like it was the doctors that were the ones that were kind of resistant to the change. So that's a whole separate course. We'll be talking about that later. How do you have to get everybody on board when you're going to make these changes. But this is where we used to be, like John said. It was a bloodbath, like he said. It was a bloodbath. But it really was. It was 2000, I think in 2009, something like that, late 2008. And the economy went, remember? If anyone was around back then doing dentistry, the economy went, psh, and I was doing cosmetic dentistry, and we were not going to take your insurance. I used to actually sit there at the first appointment with the patient for an hour. You could not get a hygiene visit right away. You had to come in and meet me. And I thought that for sure they're going to want to do that. So you got to spend an hour with me. Can you imagine that? That's a little scary. But an hour with me. And part of that talk to the patient, I had this little thing because I was taught this. It was like a graph. And oh, Bob, you have dental insurance. On this graph, how good do you think your dental insurance is? From over here being terrible to over here being fantastic? And most people, they want to think it's good, and they'd put an X over here. And then I had to explain to them, like, almost all dental insurance is really bad, and yours isn't good at all. I swear to God, that's what I did. I'd sit there and I'd walk people through how bad their dental insurance was, how you can't get quality dentistry, for what dental insurance pays, blah, 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 my whole presentation. And then check out their whole entire mouth, and they got to come back, not necessarily that day, but it was usually like a week. They had to come back another time to get a cleaning and for me to go over all the things that I'd found. So it's amazing that we weren't fully bankrupt. We were just bleeding heavily. But I kept doing all the things that I was taught, and I kept doing them more. A lot of the things he named like not to do, we had aromatherapy. We still have something in the office. I see it spewing out some kind of aroma, so I don't know. We have that. We had teacups, cookies. We would try to find out what music the patient liked when they called so that we could have it playing when they got to the office. And now I'm like, we have 400 new patients a month. So what the heck can we play for each one? So we don't know. We do still have the aromatherapy. So we've changed that so radically. And when I first came back from the conference up in San Francisco, I saw Neibauer. I forget his first name. Chris Neibauer. Raise your hand if you ever heard him talk. Yeah, he makes me look like I'm on sedatives. He was just like, you got to give. And I was like, wow, this guy's a nut. This guy's crazy. But I thought, But this crazy guy is recommending that we change our hours and we do all this other stuff. And so I wanted to do it in 2 weeks. And we went and had dinner with John, and he was like, okay, it's going to take a little longer than 2 weeks. But he goes, I think if you do what we're recommending, probably 6 months from now, you'll be like at 250,000, somewhere 6 months to a year. And then I didn't say this to his face, but later when he left, we were like, this guy's an idiot. This is ridiculous. This is impossible. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. We had all the reasons why it wouldn't work. But I was like, look, what we were doing was obviously not working. And even if we got better at doing the wrong things, it wasn't going to turn us around. So we switched it up. And I did it kind of gradually at first, which is, I think, what a lot of offices do, 7 to 7. And then we divided out the day, and then we were 8 to 2 on Saturdays. We didn't do Sundays. So it's been a kind of a long story. But here's the numbers, because I think it boggles my mind now. We do usually 30,000 a day now of dentistry. In a day, that would be like half my month before. So what Chrisad recommends is unbelievable. I will tell you some things that differ and disagree with what John says, but everyone's wrong. Sometimes John's wrong. That's just the way life works, isn't it? So this one I'm going to go through just because I think you guys are probably already doing this. Extended hours, Saturday appointments, dental care that suits you. This, if you're not extending your hours yet and you're still trying to bake cookies, I don't want to be bleak and pessimistic, but I think you're going in the wrong direction. I think the first thing you need to do is get your hours changed. And here's the other thing. You're wondering what this slide's about. I was too when my sister sent it, but then she said, this is a fancy high-end restaurant. This is the name of it, N/Naka. It's a fancy Japanese restaurant. And to me, when I go to dental lectures, a lot of the time, they're talking about this highest level dental care that you can do. And they're showing just beautiful, amazing dentistry. It's amazing. There's, triple string packing. You're pulling the cords and the perfect impressions. Everything's perfect. They barely talk about, well, how are you going to do this? It's all about the technique of making it better and better. Making a meal like N/Naka. Making this food. That's what we talk about. Better and better quality of dentistry at most dental meetings. And I'm not saying we make junk, but I'm saying patients want Denny's. Not necessarily. I'm saying that wrong. You're going to get paid for Denny's is what I should say. Because the insurance company will tell you, we want you making N/Naka meals. You can do that as much as you want. And the insurance company will never tell you, oh, you have to be more efficient, you have to do this or that. They won't. They are happy if you want to do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm all for quality dentistry, but the thing that we don't tie together is, what am I going to get paid for it? So now what we end up with is, well, I'm going to do super quality dentistry, and I'm going to hate insurance, and I'm going to try to get the patient to pay extra, and I'm going to do all these things to get paid for my N/Naka meal that I'm creating. But the problem is, that is such a hard road. If, on the other hand, you say to yourself, I'm going to do, I forget what his name was. He was Zollinger, I believe. He was like B+ and efficient. So he's doing good quality dentistry, but he's not doing the insane over-the-top stuff that really is more like a hobby. I had this one dentist I was talking to a few weeks ago because I went and volunteered to work at a friend of mine's office. The first dentist I worked for in Honolulu hurt his back last year. And he's 65 or something like that. And anyway, I went to work there, and I'd have a quote-unquote full schedule. I would be there 8 hours of their normal, I think it was 9 to 5 or whatever it was. And I think I was doing like 2,400 a day of production. And I was like, they had an emergency call, and because I heard the call because I was standing there. She's like, oh, we don't have room in the schedule to get them in. I was like, what? I'm not going to tell them how to run the practice, but it was crazy. And I'm capable to do more than $2,500 a day, but the way their schedule was set up, everything was slow. It was like slow motion. They had the CIRAC machine. I don't want to bash CIRAC machines because I know some people love them and they use them, but they scheduled like 2.5 hours for a crown so that you could go use the CIRAC machine to save, whatever, $100 on your lab bill. It got really quiet in here. So think of the math on that one. Okay? So my advice is get your dentistry where you can do it much more efficiently to match up with these extended hours. So here's what we have as our goal in our office now. So we treatment plan very, very conservatively. I think I heard Justin talking about large amalgams and replacing amalgams and stuff. I really don't replace amalgam unless the patient asks to have the amalgam replaced, or cracked tooth syndrome, or something's broken on it, that sort of stuff. So it's really very little elective dentistry, mostly needs that it's in pain or it's broken. Does that make sense? That's kind of what you're looking at. So our average treatment plan, and these are a big deal. If you're not tracking this stuff, you should be, because what you'll find is these numbers are so predictable. When you start to talk to other dentists, you go, how many patients do you get a month? How much dentistry you do? That these numbers at a successful office that's doing well start to match up. So start to kind of embed them in your mind. I'd say 1,200 to 1,600 on treatment plans is about the spread that works really well. Now, if you're doing ortho or something that's more expensive, that'll bump it up. But again, be careful, because you don't want to be presenting stuff that's beyond the realm of the patient's ability to pay for it. And I'll talk to that topic in a minute. That's our $650. We have 6 dentists altogether, and that $650 per hour is what I wanted it all to average out to. So I have myself and 2 of the other doctors that work there do about $800 to $950 an hour, and then a few of the others is like $400 to $600. So, but as a number that I think is very attainable and a good number to work off of would be $650 per hour. That, I think, is a really key measurement. This was my numbers before Chrisad. Basically, if you came to see me, you were getting a treatment plan for something. If you had perfect teeth, it was probably whitening. It might have been retainers. There was always a treatment plan for something. My average treatment plans were $3,600. My case acceptance, I don't know. I didn't keep track. I just knew that they should do it because I talked to them so well. But I think that probably, my numbers spoke for the fact that my treatment plan acceptance was probably horrible. And the ones that did accept it would stick around, but I was losing so many. I was getting like 30 to 40 new patients a month, which is actually not horrible, but where we were located, it was, compared with what we do now, it's pretty terrible. And that's what I did per hour, $460. This is the amazing stat. We used to track what's called lost hours. Do you guys track that? Anybody track that? What it was free time that I had that I could have been doing dentistry, but I didn't. That's what lost hours were. And over a course of a month, it would be 2 to 3 lost hours, which meant I was always busy, right? And think about this, I'm doing $460 an hour, and I was always somehow busy. And now I'm doing like 3 lost hours per day. So 3 lost hours per day versus 3 a month. And now I'm doing like 900 an hour. So I'm doing twice as much dentistry. So it's like started to not add up. These things in my head like, wait a second, what should we do with our scheduling? Because I'm not fully busy. I should be fully busy. I should be booked 2 weeks out and all that stuff. And it's sort of like what John says on hygiene, you can't sell what's not on the shelf. But in the regular dentistry, which is, the restorative or whatever you're doing, you can't do it if it's not on the shelf. So that's what I'm getting at. My topic here is actually about doing the dentistry that day. Because I looked this up, and I forget where I found the data, but cancellations, no-shows, reschedules, running late, you can't get them in, it's about 20 to 40%. It's way, way bigger than you think. So how do you avoid that? Well, you do it now. You avoid all those problems if you start doing dentistry now. So I believe the patient is the most motivated when they're in the dental chair. Now saves time because you don't have to reset up the op and all that stuff. And I'm going to say eventually you'd want to get to where your day is almost, and I'm not there yet, I think almost all now dentistry, which sounds crazy because usually it would be presented like, oh, you want to squeeze in maybe a crown a day or something, squeeze something in. And think about it, before I only had 3 lost hours a month. So I was thinking, I have no room to squeeze anything in, right? Now I have 3 hours a day. This is the other one, this is just supposed to be like a fancy car. I don't know what that is, but what is it? So it's a Mercedes S5, apparently. It looked like an expensive car. And there's a bunch of people milling around in the picture about to try to buy these cars. They say the most popular day of the week to buy a car, I think, is on Sunday. They say a lot of people that buy the car were actually just out for a drive with their family, killing time. So if people are willing to make these huge financial decisions based off of emotion, I'm pretty sure they can make a decision to get a dental filling or a crown or whatever they need done. I have this picture because what you notice if you go to Disneyland now, they have this new thing when you go there. You can buy a special pass, a special ticket that you can jump to the front of the line. Did you guys know that? So basically, people don't even want to wait at Disneyland. It's the most magical place on earth, right? The happiest place on earth. and they don't even want to wait there. They want to jump to the front of the line. So you may want to start charging your patients extra to actually have the dentistry done today. That's a joke. We don't do that, but think about it. We could do it in 2 weeks, or we could do it today for 20% more. This company is called Lex Brody Tires, and they're the largest tire distributor, I guess, or installer in the United States, and they're in Hawaii. And the president of this company just happened to end up being a patient of mine. He came in on a 6 a.m., I think it was on a Sunday. He had some business meeting the next day. His wife found our office, and he shows up at 6 a.m. He chipped a crown. He needed a replacement crown. And he's like, I can't believe you guys are open at 6 a.m. And we started chatting, so I've kind of gotten to know him a bit. And he said he tells the people that work for them, I think they have 180 people that work at their different locations. He said dentistry and teeth are very similar. And I started thinking about it more, and we talked to him about it more. He said 80% of the work that they do is on tires that went flat or blew out. 80% of it. It's not people that came in, oh, my tires are getting a little low, oh, the tread's starting to show, I better get this fixed. And I said, it's like same with teeth. We might know, and he knows, oh, you should change your tires before they get to this certain tread depth. He knows all that. But they're not going to make much progress trying to convince people to do that. So so instead of trying to convince people to be proactive and all the things that we spend our energy on, which are noble, by the way, it's very noble what we're trying to do, but you don't budge the needle. You can't budge the needle, or very rarely can you budge the needle. People think they budge the needle. I interviewed a hygienist once, and she said that their practice did a lot of scaling and root planing, and then they got them all into perio maintenance therapy. And I said, well, how many patients did you lose? She goes, we never lost patients. I said, how many new patients did you get a month? Well, we got at least 15. I said, okay, I'll tell you about the practice. And I could basically describe what the practice was. It was all referral-based, right? So you would tell your friends, if you are the 1 out of 50 people or 1 out of 100 people that thinks that that's what they want, yeah, you'll go tell your friends. But you're basically, your patients become your screening tool. And they'll screen it down to, if you keep pushing them to do exactly what you say and nothing else, yeah, you will have them following what you say, but there aren't that many people. You'll get very few, and that's what she got. So if he refuses to change your tires because they popped, he won't do it that day. I'm not going to do this. You should have been in here 3 weeks ago. Seriously, that's kind of what we do. I used to treat emergencies like they were the scourge of the earth. We were actually taught that. I was told that emergency patients are not good patients because they don't value dentistry. Right? Have you guys heard that? They're not good patients. So I was just taught, and I don't know how you're supposed to do this, by the way, do something to get them out of pain. That's what the consultant said. Just take 7 minutes, do something to get them out of pain. I was like, what is that something? What can you do? Give them an anesthetic, but that's going to wear off. So there's not really if you're going to go in there, in our practice now, if I'm going to go in there and do something to get them out of pain, it's going to be a definitive treatment. It'll be a root canal post-coronal crown. It'll be it'll be something definitive. And it will not be come back in a week. So start thinking in your mind, this is again my advice, start thinking of where things really are with patients. I tell patients if they come in and they haven't flossed, what is the stat on it? You probably know. Is it like 90% of people don't floss? It's something like that. It's super high, right? It's near that. So 90% aren't flossing. Half don't even go get cleaning. And the ones that show up at our office, we often tell them how they're naughty and they don't floss and they're going to burn in hell with Justin. And I was just getting his attention. He's on his phone. See, that's troubling. He is listening. He heard his name. Anyway, so I tell our patients if they don't floss, it's all the more reason to see us, right? And we welcome them. We'll never tell them, oh, you're bad because you don't floss. We'll tell them that they're beating half the other people. So the big motivators on dentistry I have found be time, money, and pain. I love these, like the stock photos. Do you guys like these too? You see them in dental journals sometime, or you'll see it in an ad. It's these guys doing intense surgery and they're over the patient. Nobody has a mask on. There's no they've got gloves on. The instruments are upside down and they're posing for the picture. So these are the big three that I have found to be it's not the quality of care. I used to sit there and show my patients pictures of the margins and stuff. It's not. It's actually those three things. So I'll talk about that and how that works into the same day thing. Fill the first 2 hours of the day. Now this is critical in our practice, and I think this is the part that I would want to pre-schedule at 6 a.m. That's when we open. We open at 6 a.m. and we close at 8 p.m. So it's a 14-hour day, and we have an hour lunch break. So that's a 13-hour day. So everyone who works at our office just works 3 days a week. You guys might know. Well, since not everyone's heard me talk or what we do, but basically that's our schedule, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. So you work 3 shifts a week, and you're off 4 days. But I'm not going to be able to fill 6 a.m. on the doctor's schedule unless it's set the day before or something. Does that make sense? If it's not filled, we can't get to work at 5:45 and start answering the phone and somehow have somebody in the chair 15 minutes later doing a crown. So that part is the only part that I think my day should be pre-scheduled. Now here's a thought experiment, and I want the whole, what is this place? I was about to call it an office. Auditorium, thank you. Who said that? Thank you so much. The whole auditorium to think about this thought experiment. So this is this schedule, let me point to it. Where is it? There's a dentist here, by the way. He has 2 chairs down. There's me, and I have that. So this is all filled in. This is crown deliveries, adjustment, whatever. That's the right column. So this is often my schedule. So we are seeing 400 new patients a month, and yet I'm not scheduled. What the hell's wrong with me? Do I have 0 case acceptance? And hygiene is pretty filled. But give this a thought experiment. I said to myself, one of my doctors said to me, one of his goals for the new year was to actually be 40 to 50% pre-scheduled, right? My goal used to be scheduled 2 weeks out at least. If I wasn't scheduled out 2 weeks, I'd start getting panicky and twitchy. I'd start asking my staff to call the patients. What's wrong? I'm not booked 2 weeks out. My older sister's a dentist. She was booked 3 months out. Dentists brag, how far they're booked out. If you're booked like 5 years out, you're the best dentist on earth. I told her, why don't you raise your prices? If you're booked 3 months out, she's like, I can't raise the prices. The patients won't come back. I go, but yeah, we could probably lose a few. You're so booked. So anyway, think of this as a thought experiment, which would be if you were just taken from your office now and you're a high-skilled dentist, you can do all sorts of dentistry, and somebody said tomorrow you're going to go work at this other office in Hawaii or wherever it is, California, and you're going to show up there. It's a robust office with lots of hygiene patients coming through and all your clinical skills and lots of emergency patients, but you're not going to be having anyone scheduled yet because you have not worked there, right? Does that make sense? So just kind of empty your mind and think about that. So of all those patients that day that you're seeing, that emergencies, hygiene patients, how much of that dentistry would you do that day, and how much of it would you say, no, I'm going to make them come back 2 weeks later or a week later or some other time? And if you really dwell on it, there'd be 0 reason to book people coming back at another time, unless it's really complicated stuff. So if you're doing full mouth reconstruction or something really complicated where you need study models and planning and time, absolutely, you're not going to do that same day. But 95+% of the dentistry we do, you can do that day. So why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Why do we have a goal to be booked 2 weeks out or a week out? Think about it. All you're doing is increasing the chances of somebody not showing up, changing their mind, whatever. So this is a very typical beginning of the day for me. And I talked to Jim and his partner yesterday. I forget where their office is. I'm terrible at that sort of stuff. He said that that's what they're seeing, the same thing. And this is a little contradictory to John's thing because I don't have hygiene-only days. And I don't have times of the day where we don't do dentistry. So is it challenging sometimes? Absolutely. I'm not going to sit here and say you can go in and make $10,000 more a day of dentistry, and that's an easy thing. It's not an easy thing, but it's totally doable. And you may want to, in your own practice, if you wholeheartedly embrace this concept, go fully in our direction, or you might go, you know what, I kind of like to have some of that pre-scheduled stuff. It makes me feel better, but I'm still going to try to do a lot of same day. I've had to really let go of it. It's such a traumatic feeling to get used to looking at your schedule. I mean, think about this. This is the schedule. There's nobody there. But then what you start doing is looking at the schedule later, and that's usually what it'll look like. So we're doing about the average of $30,000 a day of dentistry. That's a lot of dentistry, and by the end of the day, all of this stuff tends to fill in. One of my top doctors a few weeks ago, it was around dinner time. We were almost done our day. It was like at 5 o'clock, and he was, I think, at $2,000. And we don't, by the way, have some running total and all that stuff, scoreboards of where we're at and all that. We just do what comes in and try to treat the patients really well. He ended up doing 3 bridges at the end of the day and did like a $17,000 day. So it's his mindset, though. It's his mindset that we will do what comes in right now, if at all possible, if at all possible. So that's kind of what I'm talking about, is that same-day dentistry thing and the change of the mindset. So the reason this is such a valuable topic to me is that I was taught the complete opposite of this. I was taught that, it should take a long time, and you got to make a treatment plan. They've got to come back and talk it over with you. And now it's almost the whole entire day is that. The reason I put this book up there is because probably hearing this, if you're not doing this already, there's Jim, I think I see him. I think it's really hard to convince yourself that this could work. Like, I look obviously kind of nutty, dressed like this, and people think, well, he's kind of nutty, so this might not be something we could do because we're normal people. But I'm actually part normal person myself, and the reason I put this book up here, Stumbling on Happiness, is the whole premise of this book is, has anyone read it? Raise your hand if you've read this book. Nobody. Wow. Raise your hand if you're going to read this book. I'll give you the... Nice, thank you. That's a compliment, by the way, that you would trust me on this book. But it's not about dentistry. It's about what makes us happy as humans, and we think we can predict it. The whole premise of this book, the first chapter, says humans are terrible at predicting what will make them happy. And they're not talking about something you've tried before. Like if you've had chocolate cake and you go, yeah, I'm going to try chocolate cake, that'll probably make you happy because you already know it. They're talking about something you've never experienced. Right? Like, I want to live in a mansion and have a Lamborghini. That'll make me happy. And we're terrible at predicting it. And the whole book shows that. That's what the rest of the book is. One of them that jumped out at me was Siamese twins. They're stuck to each other. If you were stuck to somebody, how risky of a surgery would you undergo to be separated? Would you do a surgery? I would. I think most people think, hell yeah, I'd take a risk unless I was going to die for sure. It would be worth the risk to get separated. When Siamese twins are offered it, in a zero-risk scenario, 80% of them say no. They're much happier having somebody there with them. And all the benefits they list, well, there's always somebody there to talk to. There's always somebody there to share your feelings with. We go through in the good and the bad. It's like they have all these positives that they found. And anyway, it's amazing stuff that what we think will make us happy might not. So I think stumbling on happiness in your scheduling in your dental office would be totally revamp your mind about same-day dentistry. In fact, use that thought experiment, go back in your head. And I said the mind is like a parachute. It doesn't work unless it's open. But I think if you have an open mind on this, that kind of scheduling is a game changer. And that's all we do. So it's kind of a one small specific topic, but it's so different than what I was trained with. I wanted to share it with you in kind of an open way. And that's not bad. I usually give them like 18 minutes, so I actually talked very long today. But thank you for listening. And then I did leave a lot of time for questions. So. You have a question? You have a question? Concern? He's buying the book. Yeah, I'll wait till they bring the microphone, whoever has a question.
Hello? My question is, when you do same-day dentistry, it's a great concept. I like it. But how do you deal with more than 56 minutes in the chair, as John would say?
Oh, he's talking about for hygiene, though, or no? Or am I wrong?
Well, hygiene is, yes, but I mean, still, the patient is going to be there.
Oh, okay,
for,
excellent.
They come in for cleaning.
I get your question. Yeah, I get it. Okay, that's an excellent question. So first thing is, I'll do a scenario, I'll walk through, and this is why I think the Q&A is good, because you'll bring up things that I should have talked about. So let's say I'll say the patient, I use Bob or Sally when I'm recreating. So Sally's sitting there, and Sally's came in at, let's say, 7 a.m. So likely she's going to work. And let's just make up one. It's a molar root canal that's never had the crown, right? But we see these, right? We've seen these. So I'll sit down and I'll say, Sally, do you mind if I ask? And this, by the way, this is, those key word things that Justin was talking about. This I found is a very good one. Do you mind if I ask? You're like asking permission because you're not trying to be rude. Do you mind if I ask why your gums are all puffy and bleeding? See, it's better than, I've noticed your gums are puffy and bleeding. One seems like offensive and the other is kind of like, I'm curious. So Sally, do you mind if I ask when you had that root canal done why they didn't do the crown? I also take the stress off of the patient, why they didn't do the crown. Not why you didn't do the crown, why they didn't do the crown. Why didn't that dental office do the crown? And often they'll say, oh, they didn't mention it. That's not a common response though, by the way. The most common response they'll say is, oh yeah, they did tell me I need a crown, but I didn't have the time to do it. They'll either say they didn't have the time or the money. almost always. I didn't have the time to do it, I didn't have the money, or they were going to bring me back another day. That's a very common one as well. So I'm just listening. And so if Sally says, they didn't have the time to do it that day, I had to get that done later, and how long ago was that done? Oh, that was like 2 years ago. Oh, I said, you're very lucky then, because your tooth didn't break yet. Your tooth will break. It's like a branch on a tree, I tell them, like a dead branch on the tree. It's just sitting there. And it looks like all the other branches, but when you grab it, have you ever had that happen? It breaks. I want to get them the emotional feeling of that something that has happened in their life is a branch breaking that you grab, and your tooth will break like that. And I always say, I can't predict the day. Could be next week, next month, or Christmas Eve. It's usually Christmas Eve. I want them to, get in this emotional... Now, here's what else I do, though. When I tell them, then it could be Christmas Eve, and I said, and by the way, we're open Christmas Eve. So if it happens, because I always want to be taking the pressure, the buying pressure off of somebody. I want to put a lot of pressure on them to do this thing, but I also want to respect the fact that maybe their finances aren't right now. And so if they don't do it today, they can come back next week, whenever the heck they want. But I want them to do it today. So this is my lead-in. It's like a branch on a tree. It could break. And when it breaks, it'll split down. And oftentimes we can't save the tooth. And then we have to surgically extract the tooth. And those are tough extractions. We all know that. This is true, is it not? Cutting out a tooth that had a root canal, they're hard to get out. And so I want them to feel that. Like, I'm not to scare them, but a little bit like to get them the seriousness of getting this fixed. So I'm not talking about what a crown is. I haven't even mentioned any of that stuff yet, except that I asked them, did they recommend one? So I'm telling them about when the tooth splits, we'll have to cut it out. And then when we have to cut it out, we might have to put a graft there because we're going to have to replace it with an implant or something. So all of that stuff could cost like $5,000 or $6,000. So I'm just throwing out a number, which is your future. So we have pain, time, and money. They're not in any pain right now, right? Time would be better just to cut out of here and go to work. And money, obviously, if I don't do it, I still don't spend a penny. But I have to get them to think of the future, the Christmas Eve visit when you have to leave your house and you'd rather be opening gifts with the family. Or next week when you're at work and you're going to have to leave work. You get it? So I want them to see that. And then I said, so I know it's going to take a lot of time and money and all that to deal with this later when it breaks. But if you'd rather get it done today, we can go do it today. And you likely don't even need to numb your tooth. You won't even feel anything. You'll be out of here by, and I'll look at the watch and I'll tell them. Usually, if we pre-schedule a crown, it's an hour. But usually it doesn't take an hour to do a crown on a crown prep on a necrotic, root canal treated tooth. So let's say they're going to be done hygiene at 10 till 8. I'll tell them, we'll have you out of here by 8:30. 9 out of 10 of them, I'm not going to say that's my case acceptance, but of the ones that are going to do it, 9 out of 10 will do it that day. So I have a 60% acceptance rate. And of the 60%, only one likely will come back next week or something. Most people can call their work and say, I'm going to come in 40 minutes late today. Because if they don't do it that day, they're going to have to come some other day and get off work. And they've already inconvenienced themselves. So it's an excellent question. But we have found that, and it doesn't matter, by the way, what time of the day. If they're already there for an hour and you explain to them they need the treatment, the vast majority will stay. You'd be shocked. It shocks me. I've had patients go like, oh, yeah, I'll call them. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do the bridge, or people do 4 veneers, or whatever they do. They'll do procedures that take 2 or 3 hours. So it all just comes down to you're actually making it more convenient to them. So it's a very, very good question. And some of what John says, as I said, I don't agree with. Like, we do dentistry all day long. I do dentistry at 6 a.m. till 7, 8 at night. And we'll see hygiene all day, all night. Well, not all night. I take that back. We'll see it till 8 o'clock at night. Any other questions? Did that answer your question, though? Yeah. Did it over-answer it? Because I don't want to just answer it. I want to over-answer it. I want you to wish you never asked the question.
Hey, Declan, we're out front.
Okay. The question I have for you is, could you comment a little bit on that 14-hour schedule and how your staff, I see the benefit of only working 3 days and being off 4 days. That's a huge benefit, obviously. Mm-hmm. But it's still a really long day. Mm-hmm. So can you comment on that a little and how people have liked that? Do you sort through people? Some people just do and some don't.
I think it's that. So I'll give you a few thoughts. Again, you're going to wish you didn't ask this. But our ancestors, if you want to even call them ancestors, like 100 years ago, do some research on the average work week, what it used to be. It was crazy. People were working 12-hour days, 7 days a week. Look it up. I don't make this stuff up. I researched and I thought, okay, 100 years ago, when they didn't really have the air conditioning and all the stuff we have now and the nice cars and all that, People physically were capable of working 10, 12 hours a day every single day. So what happened to us? Why can't we do that? We've become crippled? We're in air conditioning. It's not that hard. It's not as hard as people think. There's a book written, raise your hand if you've read it, David Goggins. Have you guys heard of this guy? There's another book. This is an amazing book. Nobody's heard of him. He's a Navy SEAL, and he was way overweight, and he talked about what he did to get in shape, and it's just mind-boggling. I forget the name of the book. I think it's called You Can't Hurt Me. But David Goggins, look it up. It's an amazing book. But basically, I thought initially, okay, I'm a bit of a hyper type of personality, if you haven't figured that out. So I think, yeah, I used to tell my guys, yeah, I could work 50 days straight like this. Now I don't brag like that because I think it would probably kill me. But I started reading about nurses' schedules, and they're in ERs, 12-hour shifts. The only people that have a 12-hour shift that actually don't like it, do you know who they are? The up-all-night ones, when they're like 9 at night to 9 in the morning. That's hard. But if it's 12 hours, or ours is 13 hours, they do have 2 breaks, by the way, during the day. So our staff, if they're 6 to 8, the one on the hygiene side, they get a morning break for an hour and an afternoon break for an hour. So it's only 12 hours. It's only 12 hours. But on the dentist side, we don't do that. We have a 13-hour with 1-hour break. And I don't want to say it's easy, but it's not as bad as you would think. But I also believe there are certain people that don't like it, that would prefer. I've researched the heck out of this, though. The 8-hour workday times 5, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's the least popular work schedule. The second, the 2 popular ones are 13 times 3 or 10-hour, 4 days a week. 10 hours, 4 days a week is good. The problem with that one in dentistry is, what does that leave your hours at? And then you got to patch things together and bring in part-timers. I don't want part-time people. We used to do split shifts. I would do 7 to 1, and then somebody else would do 1 to 7. That seems like, oh, that's easy. And it is. It's only 6 hours, but you still have to get ready for work, right? You got to get dressed up. You got to get undressed when you get home. I never got out of there at 1:15 before, when I worked 7 to 1. I was always there till like 3. There was stuff to do. But I'll tell you what, when you work 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., you want to get out of there at 8. Like one of my friends used to say, we're open 7 to whenever. And I go, that sounds good in theory, but in real life, no. I tell my staff, yeah, it's a long day, but we're going to respect the fact that you're going to be out of here at 8 o'clock. We won the best places to work 3 of the last 4 years, and that's an anonymous vote. It's not like we coerced them to do it. So I believe for our staff that our work schedule works really, really well. It does also help you screen out people who have a hard time getting up in the morning and people who really aren't, I call work ethic, because that word is gone in our society, but it screens people that have a pretty strong work ethic. Yeah, because you're not going to be able to do it without it. So because we start so early. I have found it's fantastic. I think California, there's certain states have certain rules that would make it harder to do what we do without splitting it up and so forth. Yeah. So I think I over-answered. It's totally doable.
Yeah. All right. Hi. So.
What was your name, please?
My name is Mary.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't answer anonymous questions. That's
Yeah. Okay. So you have 6 associates.
myself and 5 other dentists.
5
so
other
6, yeah.
dentists. How do you motivate and you keep your associates working?
That's a
at the
really
same
good question. One of them is here. If you don't mind, he could come up, because I told him you might get a question like that. Uncle Phil.
Yeah. Yeah.
And while he's working his way up to the stage, see, I had left all this time. I'm a genius, aren't I? Anyway, okay, I'll tell you a quick funny story. One of my dentists, he's the opposite of me. He's like a Japanese samurai. They very humble. You've got to stay humble. You don't tell anyone anything. He came back from a kendo tournament, which is like that stick fighting, and it was on Maui. And I said, how did the tournament go? He goes, oh, it went well. And I said, how many people were in it? He said, over 100. I said, well, how did you do? He goes, I did pretty well. I go, what, like top 10? He goes, a little bit better. I go, what, like you were in the top 3? He said, a little better. I go, did you win? He goes, yeah. I go, why didn't you just say you won? I swear to God, this is a true story. I said, if I won the kendo tournament, there'd be a big banner in the front of the office. Dr. Devereux won the kendo tournament. So anyway, I'll let Phil answer that how do we keep them motivated?
So, well, basically, the motivation itself is, just working hard. I come in there, and my mentality may be different from everyone else's, but when the clock starts and patients are there, then that's the focus. We were talking about being patient-centric all the time, and that's what it is. You get someone in pain, they've been coming from the ER 3 in the morning, they're like, you're the guys that are the only ones open. So if you keep that in mind, that's the number one motivation. It's just taking care of the patient. Other than that, having a really good team, just working with Dr. D and the rest of the staff over there, they're just fantastic. And so, the days just flies by like that. So even though it's a long day, some days we, work through lunch and things like that, but just seeing that the staff is so good and they're ready to go. There's only so many things you can do. Like the 3 hours that we're talking about with the downtime on the day, sometimes we have that and we just kind of work out through things, extra training, working on things. But the motivation's there because everyone's around you and it's just a constant thing. So, next thing you know, you look down, it's 1 o'clock. You're like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize it was there. So the motivation was pretty easy for our office, even
The
though
other things
we're
I
kind of
would
weirdos.
add is that, and he didn't say this, but I think I would say, people do have to make an income as well. So with the office as busy as ours is, the dentists that work there, they're like in the top, 1% of dentists because of that there's so much dentistry going through. That's one thing. The other thing is I feel like I tried not even to use that word associate just because I don't know why, but the way it was used a lot, I heard people like, that's my associate. Like I just got this vibe that it's a less than thing. I don't think it is at all. I think every dentist that works there is everybody that works there in general, not just the dentist. Everybody is important. Everybody's valuable. And I treat them that way. And I'm also not greedy. Like if I go do an exam, let's say, and I've got a root canal that I'm working on, but I went and did a hygiene exam and that patient needs a crown, I'll say to them, Sally, I'm not free right now, but Dr. Phil is an excellent dentist. He's worked on my teeth or whatever, I tell him the truth. And he's free to do it right now if you'd like. Oh, that'd be great. You will be shocked how many patients value the convenience. There's always a few that go, I only want to see Dr. Devereux. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's some that only want to see Dr. Phil. But the convenience is such a big deal. And when you start sharing with each other and vice versa. Last week I went in and on my schedule was a molar root canal post-coronary crown that he diagnosed on a patient the day before. So, you just treat it like there's a lot to go around and treat people with respect. Yeah. Any other questions for Phil? I'm going to leave the stage.
Good morning.
Anything else?
I have one. Good morning. Ken is my
Ken.
name. I love your shoes. How do you deal with that initial rebuff? You're going to do your whole song and dance and hygiene, and somebody's going to say no. So.
Oh, you mean to the treatment?
Yes.
Oh, because I say to them, Ken, I'd say, if you'd like to stay and get this done today, we'd be happy to do it. And if they look at me like, I don't think it will work with my schedule, or, they're just basically, they're in that 40% saying no group. I said, it's no problem, Ken. We'll be happy to fix this whenever you're ready. And if you decide not to fix it, the main thing is you come back in 6 months, get your teeth cleaned, even if you don't want to fix this tooth. And then we totally respect that. It's your tooth, and we'll do as you wish. Something like that.
So
I take all the heat off of them.
It's not a hard push. You don't.
Oh, no, not at all. I used to think, this was all in my own head, all this stuff's in our own head, that if I could do the dentistry that day, the patients would think I'm a crappy dentist because I'm not busy enough to be booked 2 weeks out. That's what I thought. They don't even care. But if you turn it around and start thinking about life in a different way, like as the customer, not as all this conceptions in our own brain, most people, if you took your car in and they said, oh, well, you can come back in 2 weeks to get the tires, and you're thinking, oh, crap, I'm going to have to rent a car for 2 weeks, blah, blah, blah. Or if they said, just leave it here and we'll get it done today, you're not going to think, oh, it's a lousy, poorly run business because they actually have room to fix me today. Your brain won't even think of that. I don't. Now, I think it's different if you go in a restaurant and there's like open seats everywhere and you're the only person there. But our place is busy. So they see busyness. They see patients all around them, So did that answer it? There's no heat, though. No heat. Do you want to add anything to that? He was asking, well, what if the patient said no? He's probably, in our practice, I think, the best at talking to patients. So what do you feel like if they say no? He doesn't accept the no. I've heard him. No, you're going to do this. He's the opposite of me. He's the heat.
Basically, just try to put that emotional connection again. They're there. We value their time, so you just put it on them. Just say, well, you're here already. We value your time. If not, you're going to have to reschedule your work. come back down here, it looks like you're in a little bit of pain. You've been waiting on whatever treatment is, big cavity. You just know that it's like, well, it's okay. You've had this cavity. It's been growing for 6 months. You may not feel pain. You may never feel pain, but next thing you know, that's when the tooth breaks. That's when you're in pain. Your face is swollen up to here. So you just kind of paint that grim picture that something's going to happen catastrophically at any time. And that's the motivation for their mind. They're like, oh, I don't like that. So then that's when they're like, all right, you're right. I'm going to go ahead and call my work. And,
The grim
and that's
picture.
about it.
Yeah.
My name is Feroz.
I was kidding about that name thing, you guys, by the way.
2 questions. So one is, how did you transition from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 to 6 to 8? And do you block a lunch, scheduled lunch in the
I
in your
do,
books?
yeah, I do. So we have 2 doctors there. So on the doctor's side, it's, I think, 11 to 12 is one of the doctors takes lunch, and the other doctor is 4 to 5. And the reason they're split like that is because our hygienists have 2 lunch breaks. And so one of the doctors takes a lunch break when that is, isn't that about? Yeah, and the other does the. The other question's a really good one, like how did we transition? And the sad thing is, I did it so long ago, but at first it was 7 to 1, and it was during the weekdays. And I think we did 4 of the days, but not Thursdays. We were screwy as hell for a few years. Like we had, I hated it because it wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to do, I forget when I decided, I think it was on a trip back from Vegas. No, I was looking at numbers and paper, and I was like, what are we doing? Why don't we do 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.? And then I thought, oh, that's crazy. How are you going to convince people of that? So I made a PowerPoint presentation, and people were not at first like, this is great, this is fantastic. They were kicking and fighting. Even going to 7 to 7 with the split shifts was a pain in the neck. That's why if you manage to do this stuff, you will deserve every penny that you make because you've had to go through this. As Neibauer used to say, it's not easy, but it's easy. It's easy to tell somebody what to do, but it is hard to implement. The 7 to 1 created a lot of split schedules and part-time staff, and like it was a mess. And what really tripped it for me, I had one staff member, and I forget what the days she worked, but it was like Tuesday, 7 to 1, Thursday, whatever. It added up to 40 hours, but it was all over the place. And when then she found a different job, I was like, okay, now we have to replace her, and we have to, what do we put an ad in the Craigslist for somebody that can work on Monday from this time to this time, and who are we going to find that matches her schedule? So now it's easy, really, to tell people you're going to work 3 days a week. One of them is likely to be a weekend. We tell them that. The other problem people get is when you first say, well, we're going to be open on Sunday. You propose, ooh, wow, I forgot I had a bow tie on here. You propose to your staff that you're going to be open on Sunday. Well, who's going to work Sunday? And you just go, me, I'm going to work Sunday. When I told my daughter I was going to work Sunday, she was like, Dad, I'll never see you. And I go, no, you'll see me on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. I mean, I'm off 4 days a week. The other week I work too. So she sees me. I go, you'll get sick of me. You'll see me so much. And Sunday is, if people think Saturday's a good day, Sunday's the best day. It's amazing how our dentists want to work on the Sunday. It's no longer this, like, I don't want to work weekends. It's like, please let me work on the weekend. If you only work 3 days, it's okay if one of them's a Saturday or a Sunday. It's not a big deal. And I do respect religious stuff, so some people, go, I can't do Sunday. Well, then you can do Saturday, So it's hard as heck to get people to do it. If you had I would tell somebody, my advice, if somebody wanted to do this fast, go get a bank loan. People will get a bank loan to build a second office. Save your money, get a bank loan, and bankroll hiring people, right? Think of what that would cost just if you had no revenue. Just pretend no revenue. I'm going to hire whatever, 8 people, 10 people, whatever I need to staff this thing, and hire people. And it fills in. It's amazing how it'll fill in. So that's where I would say that people should spend more money. Not on dental lasers, not on CRACs, this super expensive stuff. Go get a loan and hire some people. You'll help the economy. And if you're a nice guy, they'll love you and you'll grow.
One more question.
I'm getting jittery. What else is new?
Too much caffeine?
No, not enough.
How do you deal with a patient at like 7 p.m. that has work? Do you schedule them back? Because you probably don't want your doctor to stay until like
A very good question, and the answer is you don't use anesthetic and you just work like hell. No, that's not the answer. If you think it's going to take you way past 8, then you just say, then you do the old-fashioned thing that, there's some infection here, we're going to give you some antibiotic and bring you back in a couple days, or we'll see you at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. But I mean, occasionally we'll have a doctor that'll work through till 8:10 or 8:20. But our front office staff, they're there till like 8:15, 8:20 each day because they have to close up the accounting. So, they said, guys, when you guys run late in the back, it really punishes the people in the front. So we try to be very considerate of that. That's the one thing if I'm picky about. Let's make sure we're done by about 10 till 8. That's the longest 10 minutes of the day, by the way, when everyone's standing around trying to look busy. They don't even do it anymore. They don't even do it anymore. That's another thing you have to get used to. We have 50 total staff. So I just told you I have 3 lost hours in many days. That will have you a lot of dental assistants and people standing around. And I used to be like freaking out about that. But now I do believe what Justin said is very valuable. Clean up, tidy up, and they do those sort of things. But we work hard. When we're going. So I don't mind too much. I let the people do the texting thing a little bit, not too much. They used to see me coming, they'd hide like this. And so I'd walk up to them and I'd go like that. But I'm pretty casual about that. I didn't used to be. I was a different character. But they don't want to be called in to talk to me very often. That doesn't happen much. I have a different side of my personality. It gets real intense. Okay.
Can I go?
Questions?
Hello?
You're live.
Hi, my name is Natalie. I'm over here.
Oh, you got snaked.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry. I thought
Sorry,
it was
not
her. I
sorry.
was like, how are you talking so loud?
I trumped her. Sorry. I have a couple questions actually, but they're pretty quick. One is, I love the concept of same-day dentistry. Can you elaborate a little bit on the financial side, on what goes on in the background? Like when you're pulling someone to do same-day, who comes in, when do they come in? Is it an issue with the copay? So let's say they are doing a crown, but now they find out that they have to pay X amount of dollars, and then they change their mind and they no longer want to do it that day.
Oh, a very good question. Our front office doesn't really like the doctors talking to the patient about money. So if I do, I try to give it a big number. I'll be like, it looks like you have insurance, so you're probably looking at a few $100s. Let my staff come and talk to you. So I try to get it diagnosed as early as I can to give them time. But that is one like boogaboo that we have, that the patient might have to wait for 10 or 15 minutes while they're doing the financial stuff. So it can add some time. But again, I have not found that causes people to go, I'll do it another day. Unless it's really complicated. What do you think? Do you have anything to add on that?
I mean, with our office, there's so much going on, so you just go in there and you just try to tell them, someone's coming in right now, you give them a glass of water, you just try to treat them well. If they're really in pain, holding their face, we give them a little anesthetic just to kind of start out and say, okay, now you can kind of relax, get some rest, because some of them haven't slept in days.
Yeah.
So they're happy.
And my other question was that when you are open only like 3 days a week, let's say there's an emergency in the middle of the week.
Who's open 3 days a week? What do you mean?
Are you guys
No, we're open 7 days a week.
Oh, never mind.
But
Just
we
kidding.
only work 3 days a week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, but let's just say that somebody decided to transition to our schedule and do, like that was one of the reasons I didn't do it. I think what you're asking is if you were going to be open 3 days and then rotate them, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or something like that, and just keep the same number of staff. But that would probably work. I considered that before, but you'd have a lot of these emergency things. Like what do you do with the emergency patients and all that? So we didn't do that. We're open every day, 6 to 8. We're open on Christmas as well. And New Year's. But not Thanksgiving, man. No way. No, we're open Thanksgiving. That was a joke. Okay. Anything else? We have 3 minutes and 28 seconds.
Hi. Yeah. Is there a certain threshold of daily hygiene and new patients that you see to be able to do or implement same-day dentistry? Do you need a certain amount of...
That's a really good question. I get it.
Daily hygiene, because...
I've digested it.
Yeah, because if you have, many columns of hygiene, it's a little bit easier. But is there a certain level that you would, consider that, when you should consider it?
Well, that's a really good question. And I would say that office that I went and worked at, they had 1 column of hygiene, so they were seeing like 8 patients. If everyone showed up, they would have had 8, and 2 didn't show up, which is pretty common. So they had 6, and so then I had my main column of dentistry. But here's the thing. That office is even more open, has more availability than I do, if you think about it. if they just, what should they do? They should just add another assistant, right? Hire another assistant and start to open up more hours. So I get your question. So I would say likely where people are at right now is if they're trying to be booked 2 weeks out and all that, just start with what you've got, hire another assistant and maybe another financial person and start doing it right now. You might only add 1 or 2 patients a day of same day, and you might keep your other stuff. But what you'll see over time is that the same day treatment ends up being really, it's almost always good stuff to be doing, almost always, because it's it's root canals, post-cores, crowns, stuff like that. I hope I answered it, but I don't think you need a certain volume of hygiene. I used to think that. I used to think, I got to have like huge hygiene to fill in these spots over here. But just again, go back to the thought experiment. If you can fill a schedule 2 weeks from now for 8 hours, why can't you fill it today? What's the difference? Think about it. There's no difference. Go back to that little thought experiment. Run it around in your head a few times. So that idea that you need to have all these patients to fill this side, you don't. You need less because you're not having anyone, you're having very few no-shows, cancellations, and all that because they're already there. Really just sit around and play with it in your mind and you'll go like, wow, it's true. Almost everything I say, if you sit and think about it long enough. Okay, we got 1:12.
Yes,
Anything
sir.
else?
Yes, sir.
I want her question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Yes,
you
sir.
very much, first of all, for being, this was a very pleasant hour, and you're very authentic. It's really enjoyable listening. And Dr. Phil, thank you for being up there.
Dr. Phil.
I have, a question, and I realize it might be your secret sauce, so you may not want to answer it. First of all, I wanted to ask Dr. Phil, how long have you been in this practice?
I've been fortunate to be with them for about a little over 4 years now.
Okay,
And he's the
that's
newest. The other ones are all longer than that.
long term. Great, that's wonderful. So, are you compensated based on adjusted production, and is there any sort of a shared equity?
Adjusted production.
Adjusted
correct.
production?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, but think about the math. These guys are doing 130, 140, 150
Right.
a month.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's great.
I talked to a dentist he was a cosmetic guy and blah, blah, blah. Long story short, he was having a hard time selling his practice. And when I heard the numbers, I'm like, you have about a 78% overhead, which is not terrible for a solo guy. It's actually pretty decent. So you're making 22% of everything you do. Mm-hmm. So why would somebody want to buy that when they could come and work, 25 or 30%? It wouldn't make any sense.
Right.
So I really believe if I wasn't doing this, I would never want to be a solo dental practice again. Like, he's really lucky he met me and vice versa, though.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Right.
Vice versa. Like, I can't do what I do without him and so we really look at it more like the dental practice is just the place where we do our profession, but it's not this thing I'm going to build and then sell. And the only reason to own your own practice, I think, a solo type of a practice anyway, is if you're such a control type of personality that you don't want to share burrs or whatever. Like, we have to compromise. Like, when you come and work there, we all use this equipment. We don't go like, well, I have my own burrs and stuff.
Yeah.
He wears special gloves, though.
Of course.
That's not true. It's an absolute lie.
So you must have a good screening process if you've had your associates with you
That
for such
is
a
a
long
whole
time.
other thing, hiring, and I will talk about that at length at our next, who he's going to talk about.
Okay.
We have created, I don't know, like an academy, you'd call it. And in fact, that's what we called it.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to go. I don't want to
you.
run over. Good job.